this video, we're going to finish building out our object-oriented calculator for Tkinter and Python. Hey guys, John Elder here from Tkinter.com, and in the last video, we created the GUI for our simple little calculator using object-oriented programming in Tkinter. In this video, we want to make it functional so we can press the buttons and numbers pop up on the screen, and then we can actually do the math, the addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. And we might put a little label up at the top that sort of shows our work as we go. I think you're going to be surprised just how easy it is to finish out this calculator, and it should be a lot of fun. So let's head over to our code. I'm using the Sublime text editor and the Git bash terminal as always. And as always, you can find a link to the code in the pinned comment section below, as well as a link to the playlist with all the other videos in this object-oriented Tkinter series. So check that out if you haven't so far. So we've got our file from the last video. It's called class_calc.py. And let's come down here to where the buttons are defined. So what we want to do here is anytime a button is clicked, we want to pass in whatever this text is here to a function and then do something. So to do this in Python, you would normally give this a command of, if you wanted to call a function in Python, it would be, for instance, if we wanted this in our parent class, it would be parent dot, let's say num underscore press. If we wanted to then pass something, we would just pass it like this in regular Python. But with Tkinter, you can't actually do that. You need to use a Lambda. It's just one of these weird quirks. So we give this a command equal lambda and then a colon. Now this looks like a capital L. It is a lowercase l. This is a capital L. The whole thing is white. It's angular. But with Sublime, for some reason, lowercase kind of looks like a capital L. But it's lowercase. So anyway, we give this a command of lambda, and then we pass this to our parent class. And let's call a function called numPress, and we want to pass along whatever number that is. In this case, it's 1. So, and actually we don't want quotation marks. We just want to pass in the actual number. So we can go ahead and copy this and paste it in for each of our buttons. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. And then just come through here and change these numbers. So this is going to be number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. Okay, so we've got this function numPress. We're passing in a number. So now we need to create this function. So we're doing this in our parent class. So let's come up here, and we've got a couple of functions already. And let's let's say pass the pressed numbers to the entry box. So we want to define numPress. We want to pass in self, and we also want to pass in whatever that number is. So I'm just going to call it num. Really, all we need to do is take whatever the number is and output it at the end of our entry box, right? So let's go self.my_entry dot insert. We want to insert it at the end, and we just want to insert the num. So, okay, let's go ahead and save this and run it just to make sure this is working. Head back over to our terminal. I'm in my c/tkinter.com directory, and let's run Python class_calc.py. And when we do, we can press 1, 2, 3, and it just puts it at the end there. And that looks good. Okay, so now we've got the numbers. They work fine. We can plus and minus it. Now we want to add our math signs. So for instance, if we had 12 and then we pressed plus, we want a little plus sign to appear up here. So then we can then press another number, and it says 3, and then we can click the equal thing, and it will do the math, right? So how do we add in this sign? Just the same exact way, very nearly, that we added the numbers. And I'm going to do that by creating another function. So let's say get the sign or get the math sign. And let's define, and I'm going to call this Signage because whatever. And we want to pass in self, and we also want the sign. So we can pass for now. And we need to now come down here to those buttons. And let's see, we've got a plus, a minus, a multiplication, and a division. Same deal, we're going to give it a command of lambda. And again, that's a lowercase l. I'll keep screaming that, but people will forget. So we want to pass signage, and it's going to be parent.signage. And then inside of here, we want to pass whatever the sign is. And we need to put these in quotation marks because this is a string. It's not an actual number like these guys up here. So, okay, that looks good. Just copy this. So this is going to be minus, and this one is going to be multiply. And I could see over here, it says multiply minus addition. That's where I'm getting that. And here, multiplication. Okay, that looks good. So now let's come back up to our signage function here. And first, we need to check to make sure there's stuff in the box already. Why? Because if it's empty, if we haven't typed in a number yet, and we just press plus or divide, well, we don't want that. We don't want the divide sign to be the first thing in the box. We need to be there needs to be a number in there first, right? So let's go if self.my_entry dot get. And what this will do is basically does some logic that says, does this equal true, right? You could just do a shorthand and just take that part off. It's really saying if this exists. And if it exists, it exists because there's numbers there. There's something in there. There's something already existing in that box. So if there is, what do we want to do? Well, we want to add sign to end of the entry box. So we just go self.my_entry.insert. Again, we want to put it at the end, and we want to put whatever that sign is. So let's save this and run it, make sure that looks good. So here we could say 12 plus. There we go. Now, if we click minus, it keeps adding things. Maybe we want that, maybe we don't. We can run some logic in there to see, is there already a sign there? I'm going to leave it off because there may be some circumstances where we want to string this along. We might want to go 12 plus 2 minus 6 multiply 2. We might want to have all these other signs pop up. So I think we're just going to leave it like that. So, okay, so far so good. Now we want to deal with the equal to button. We want to actually do the math. So Python has a function called the eval function that is super simple and will take care of most of this stuff for us. So let's do the math. Woo! All right. So let's define, and I'm going to call this mather because I'm very unique and sort of stupid. So we have a mather function. Now, same deal. We want to come down here to our, let's see, where's our equal to button? Right here, our button equal, right? And again, we want to give this a command of, now we don't really need to do a lambda for this. We can just call parent.mather because we don't need to pass anything to this function. It's just the equal to sign, right? It's always going to be the equal to sign. So we come back here to our mather function, and we need to do some stuff. So first, again, we need to make sure the box is full, right? There's stuff in the box. So again, we'll go if self.my_entry.get. If it exists, then what do we want to do? Well, let's define our equation. And you'll see why we need to do this. And I'm just going to create a variable called equation. And we're going to set that equal to whatever is in self.my_entry.get. We don't maybe necessarily need to do that, except we sort of do, because before we put the answer up, we're going to delete whatever's in that box, right? In fact, we're going to delete the box right now. So let's go self.my_entry.delete. We want to delete from the 0th position all the way to the end. So everything in that box, right? So now it's empty. Whatever was in there has been assigned to this variable, so we can still do our math stuff, right? So now let's output the answer to the box. And to do that, we just call self.my_entry.insert. We want to insert it at the end. And what do we want to insert? Well, we want to insert the eval of whatever our equation is. And this eval function is really nice. It just takes everything that's in there and it evaluates it. So if it says 12 plus 2, it will evaluate that. It'll figure out the plus sign means addition, and it'll do it. If it sees a minus sign, it'll do minus. If it sees a multiplication, it'll do multiplication. So then it will output that back onto the thing. So, all right, that looks good. Come back over here and run this guy again. So 12 minus 2 equals 10. 10 plus 50 equals 60. All right. So 12 times 2, that's going to be 24, sure enough, divided by 6, that's going to equal 4. Now notice it's 4.0. Oh, decimals. We forgot all about decimals. Maybe we want decimals. Well, you can add a decimal button, and I think you should be able to figure out how to do that now with the insert we've already done for all the other buttons and things. Pretty simple. But okay, looks good. Now, what else can we do with this? What is 4? For what? Well, I've already forgotten what my equation was. So let's put a little label up here at the top that puts out the equation so we can remember what we just typed in, right? Might be fun. So I'm going to come up here to the very top where we defined our entry box. And I'm just going to create another widget here. And I'm going to call this self.my_label. And we can knock this out in like a minute. So let's go. This is going to be a label. We want to put it in self. We want the text to equal nothing, right? And then let's self.my_label dot pack. Let's give this a pad y of, and I'm going to use a tuple here. And the reason why is because there's not a whole lot of space up there. So we had a pad y of 20 for our entry box. So I'm going to split that up. I'm going to go 10 and 0. So it'll be, what, 10 below. And for the pad y of this guy, I'm going to change it as well to 0 and 10. So, okay, that should look good. All right, so right away, it has nothing in the text, right? So let's come down here to our mather function. And let's see, when we defined our equation, let's also output the equation to the label, just so we have it, right? So that's self.my_label .config, and we want to set the text equal to whatever our equation is. We might want to get fancy with this, so let's create an F string, and let's put the equation in there. But then let's also put equals, and then inside of that, let's do that eval thing again with our equation. So it'll have the equation, equals, and then the answer as well. So, all right, that looks good. Now, we might also want to, whenever we clear the screen, get rid of whatever's in there. So let's see, do we have a clear? Yeah, here we go. Let's clear the box, but also let's clear the label. So let's go self.my_label .config and set the text back equal to nothing. Okay, so let's save this and run it, see if that worked. Let's go 12 plus 2 equals, and up here it says 12 plus 2 equals 14. Here we have our answer of 14. And I think that's good. We don't want the whole equation in this box. You could just output it so it looked like 12 plus 2 equals. But then if you wanted to do more math, you really couldn't. So if this is 14, right, and then we wanted to then subtract 4, we could just keep going. And we've got 10. If we wanted to now then times that by 2, we could just keep going. Now if we click clear, the box disappears and the label disappears. All right, pretty good. So one more thing we need to look at. Let's go 12 plus 2. Now if we hit our plus minus button, we get some errors. Why? Because we really only want to make a thing positive or negative at the beginning right now, right? We might want to play around with this later to add some more logic. So if we wanted to say plus -2 or something like that, we could do that, but we don't really need to, because what we could do is just go plus negative, there we go, 2. That's the same thing, right? So if we add this, it's going to be 10, right? So we don't really need to finagle this plus minus for that, but we do need, if there's an equation going like here, you see if I keep clicking this, I keep getting an error. So we need to fix that real quick. That's going to be easy. All we need to do is sort of look at what's in the box and say, hey, if one of those signs is there, don't do the plus minus thing, right? So a little bit of logic should get us there very easily. So let's come to our posneg function here. And it starts out logic to say, hey, is there anything in the box? But then after that, we need to run some more logic. So let's go if the plus sign is not in self.my_entry.get, right? Then we want to do all this stuff. Tab all this over, right? We need more than just the plus. We need to also do this for the minus, the multiplication, and the division. So we can just string this along with an and, right? So and let me just copy this whole thing. Now let's go and do it again for minus. And this is a little bit sloppy. And do it again for multiplication. And then and do it again for division. So it's kind of hard maybe to, we don't need another and at the end. But we can see here, we're just doing a bunch of ands. And maybe you could play around with this and do a loop to make it look a little more elegant. Loop through, create a list or something. I'll leave that to you to play with. But I don't know, quick and dirty, this works. It's not pretty, but it works. So if plus is not in self and minus is not in self and multiply is not in self and division is not in self, meaning if none of those signs are in there, well, then we can do all this stuff and add the plus or the minus. Otherwise, it's just not going to do anything. So go ahead and save this, test it, see if that worked. One more time, head over here. Let's go 12 plus, and then minus plus equal, nothing happens. No longer get an error. It works. Now if we equal to, we get 14. Now if we do our plus minus, it still works. Uh-oh. Ah, now that's interesting. When it's at negative, that if statement is failing because there's a negative in there. Interesting. All right, we're going to have to play with this. Clear the screen. Let's go 7. Yeah, it won't switch back again. Okay. Well, how do we fix that? Well, I suppose we could use the starts with function. All right, so let's go if self.my_entry .get starts with negative, then we want to do all this stuff. I'm just doing this on the fly here, so there's probably a better way to do this. Else if, or instead of if here, let's pull an elif. All right, so let's see if that works. All right, so all right, let's go back over here. Let's go 2 minus positive. Okay, that seems to work. All righty, let's clear the screen. Let's try 12 plus, no error. All right, that works. Let's go 12 minus. All right, no error, that works. 12 times. Okay, I think we're good here. So, I think that's all there is to it. So, quick and dirty starts with, if it starts with negative, then that's fine. We'll positive and negative flip it around, right? Otherwise, else if, in addition to, we've got our second else statement, our elif statement, does the whole string of things. And yeah, okay, I think that works. So I think we're going to call this one done. Now there's obviously just tons more you could do with calculators. This is a very basic calculator. There are zillions of calculator tutorials on the internet. I've got some myself that are more advanced on the channel. I don't want to build another calculator. I don't think anybody wants to see that. What I wanted to show in this tutorial is sort of how to get a little bit more interesting, a little more complicated stuff in object-oriented Tkinter. And you can see specifically we've got, our weird lambdas. How do we deal with lambdas in object-oriented coding? Same as with functional programming, we just slap a parent in front of it. And again, I want to look at this sort of flow here. We've got our main class app, and we've defined all the normal things like the title and stuff and the size of the app. I've got just a couple of widgets I want to deal with, so I put them in the init function. Now, that's the label and the entry, right? The rest of this class is my functions, and I like this sort of layout. We've got all of our functions in our main class, and then we break out anything more complicated widget-wise. So we've got all of these widgets, all of these buttons. We could put all of this stuff in our class, in our init function here, right? But it would be overwhelming. It's fine when there's just a couple of them right here like we see, but when there's a ton of them, I just like breaking them out into their own class. And you can see we've created a frame, put them in the frame, and then we could just call that frame like we did right here inside of our init function. And it's just much more clean, much less sloppy in my mind. And that's all there is to it. Now you could even break this out into another file if you wanted and import it to make it even sort of more streamlined. I don't think we need to do that, but you could. and very cool. So that's all for this video. If you liked it, be sure to smash the like button below, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, and be sure to grab your totally free PDF copy of my Tkinter Widget Quick Reference Guide book. This thing is awesome, over 150 pages with all the Tkinter Widget attributes. Grab your free copy today. Just head over to tkinter.com/widget-book, enter your email address, and I'll send that right out to you. And while you're there, think about membership in tkinter.com and get all my Tkinter courses, all my future courses for one low price. Use coupon code YouTube to get 30% off membership if you're interested. My name is John Elder from Tkinter.com, and I'll see you in the next video.